You think people respect you. They reply to your texts. They smile when you walk into the room. They include you in the group chat. They laugh at your jokes, sometimes. But here's what you're missing. Politeness is a social lubricant, not a measure of value. Civility is the minimum requirement for functioning in society, not a sign that you matter. There's a difference between being welcomed and being tolerated. And a lot of people who think they're respected are actually being tolerated. The question isn't, do people treat me nicely? The question is, what would they do if they didn't have to? Let that sink in for a moment. You've been interpreting absence of rejection as presence of respect. You've been confusing not being excluded with being valued. But those are fundamentally different things. People tolerate. Co-workers they don't like because they have to. Relatives they find draining because of obligation. Attention seekers in their circle because it's easier than confrontation. People they've outgrown because guilt keeps them around. Tolerance is not respect. Tolerance is the path of least resistance. And if you can't tell the difference, you will spend years investing in relationships that were never real, giving your time, energy, and emotional resources to people who were simply waiting for you to stop needing their attention so they could quietly drift away. Here's a psychological truth most people never learn. You don't know what someone thinks of you by what they say. Words are cheap. Words are social performance. Words are often just avoidance dressed up as kindness. You know what someone truly thinks of you by observing what they do when social pressure is removed. Respect is revealed in the gap between obligation and choice. Pay attention to these signals. Do they listen? Or do they wait for their turn to speak? Do they remember what matters to you? Or do they only remember what you can do for them? Do they respect your boundaries? Or do they treat your limits as negotiable? Do they value your time? Or do they treat it as less valuable than their own? If the answer to most of these is no, you're not respected. You're useful. And usefulness is not the same as value. Someone can use a tool without respecting it. They can appreciate what it does without caring about what it feels. And when the tool breaks, they replace it. They don't mourn it. Let me show you what being tolerated looks like in real life. 1. You're always the initiator. You reach out first. You suggest plans. You keep the conversation alive. You're the one carrying the weight of the connection. And if you stop, silence. Not because they hate you, but because you were doing all the work, and they never cared enough to match your effort. 2. You're included, but never prioritized. You get invited to the group thing, the birthday party, the casual hangout where everyone's expected. But when they make real plans, when they choose who they actually want to spend time with, your phone doesn't ring. 3. They laugh with you, but they don't listen to you. You're the entertainer, the one who lightens the mood, the one who makes everyone feel comfortable. But when you have something serious to say, the room shifts. People check their phones. Someone changes the subject. You're tolerated for what you provide, not valued for who you are. For their effort is conditional. They respond when it's convenient. They show up when they have nothing better to do. They're present when they need something. And when you finally stop trying, when you pull back your energy and see what happens, almost nobody notices. That's not a hypothesis. That's an experiment. And the results will tell you everything you need to know. Let's go deeper. Why does this happen? Because human beings are constantly, unconsciously assessing value. It's not conscious. It's not malevolent. It's a psychological survival mechanism. We assess, does this person add to my life or drain it? Do I respect them? Or do I feel obligated to them? Would I choose them? Or am I just avoiding conflict? And here's the painful truth. Your behavior teaches people how to treat you. If you tolerate disrespect, you teach people that disrespect is acceptable. Over-explain yourself. You teach people that your words need justification before they're believed. Seek approval constantly. You teach people that your self-worth is a negotiation. Make yourself too available. You teach people that your time has no value. Every interaction is a signal. And when you consistently signal low standards, people unconsciously adjust their behavior accordingly. They don't respect you less because you're a bad person. They respect you less because your behavior tells them they don't have to. This is the fundamental law of social dynamics. People treat you according to the standards you set, not the standards you wish you had. Here's the part that's hardest to hear. Some people keep you around not because they value you, but because you're convenient. You're reliable. You're predictable. You don't demand much. And that's exactly why they stay. Not because they respect you, but because you're easy. Let me say that clearly. The more you tolerate, the less you're respected. The less you demand, the less you receive. The more available you are, the less you're valued. This isn't cruel, it's psychology. Humans naturally conserve energy. We invest where we get the highest return, and we rarely value what feels guaranteed. Think about it. The person who fears losing everyone often loses respect first. The person desperate to be liked becomes the easiest to overlook. The person always available becomes invisible. Not because they're unworthy, but because they've communicated that they'll accept anything. And people unconsciously respond to that by giving them nothing. If you want true respect, not just tolerance, not just politeness, not just convenience, you need to understand what actually earns it. Respect is not built by pleasing people. It's built through standards. You have a baseline for how you're willing to be treated, and you enforce it, not through anger, not through lectures, through behavior. When someone disrespects you, you don't get loud. You get distant. Your presence is a privilege, and you act like it. 2. Boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls. They're filters. They don't keep people out. They let the right people in. They communicate. This is what I accept. This is what I don't. If you can't meet that, the door is there. 3. Emotional control. The most respected people in a room are rarely the loudest. They're the ones who don't react to every slight, who don't seek validation, who don't need everyone to like them. Emotional independence is magnetic. 4. Self-respect. You don't need to announce your value. You demonstrate it by not over-explaining, not chasing, not accepting crumbs, not staying where you're tolerated instead of valued. The most respected people say very little about their worth, and everything about it through their choices. So here's your challenge. Stop asking, do people like me? Start asking, if I stop reaching out, who would reach out to me? If I stopped giving, who would still be there? If I disappeared for 30 days, who would actually notice? And who would only realize I was gone when they needed something? The answers will hurt, but they will also set you free. Because holding on to relationships where you're tolerated, instead of valued, quietly destroys your self-worth over years. You start small. They're just busy. They'll get back to me. They mean well. And before you know it, you've spent a decade accepting less than you deserve. Not because you didn't want more, but because you never believed you had the right to ask for it. Being tolerated feels like respect, but it isn't. And confusing the two will keep you small, keep you available, keep you giving to people who don't even think about you when you're not in front of them. So choose differently. Set the standard. Protect your energy. Stop accepting what you wouldn't wish on someone you love. Because respect doesn't come from being convenient. It comes from being undeniable. And when you finally stop tolerating being tolerated, everything changes.